Shalom, welcome. This is the last installment of our series called Man Rules with Prayer, based on Torah 97 in Likutei Moran. And we've been building ideas like all of the Rebbe's Torahs, as idea after idea after idea, level after level, that you attain through the performance of, well, what he's talking about here is how to perfect prayer. So that prayer in man becomes God's presence in the world, and such a person rules with prayer, like the Baba Sali, like other great tzaddikim that we've known and heard about. And he tells us here, when you have this level, it's beautiful. He says at the end of the last column, we're going to do the last 20 words. Most of this Torah is a lot of Kabbalah, which is going to deal with names and letters. We'll explain that. But he begins, he says, "Shiyeh tefillah memshalah," that your prayer will have rulership. Now, the first place we need to rule is our own Yetzer Hara. But the Yetzer Hara is very difficult. He's an angel and we're human beings, so it's kind of hard. It's a difficult match. It's Yaakov against the angel of Esav before they entered the land. But the battle, of course, is to discover that it's the Yetzer Hara. Once you reveal evil, he has no power anymore. His whole power is to remain hidden. And we can see this on every level of society in the world. It's the hiddenness over good people that gives power to evil. Unfortunately, that's the way it's set up. But that means all we have to do is yitgaleh tefillah, the Rebbe says, to reveal prayer. And that is yitgaleh tanug. And that reveals the pleasure that God has in creating us. So you see how it is? You fix your prayer. Your prayer is an attachment to Him with humility and not attached to who great you are, great you were, or great your great-grandfather was. It's just attached to the simplicity of standing before the Creator and saying the words from deeply, truly in your heart. Whatever the words are. And you can get to the level where you hate God because you hear the news and over enough bad news, and you start to hate everything if you listen to too much news. But God can handle that too, because He knows we really don't hate Him. We hate the way things are in the world because we don't understand. It's the pain of our own ignorance that causes us hatred. And that's really a big part of why there's so much anti-Semitism. But let's not talk about that. I'm doing another series we started called Scapegoat. And over there, we'll talk about more in depth about the idea of anti-Semitism. However, understand that your prayer, when it's at this level of humility, simplicity, and focus and paying attention to the words, and you've cleaned out your cabinet of your heart, and you make room for Hashem, you give Him pleasure. And you're not only giving Him pleasure, you're giving Him pleasure from the beginning of time, where He first foresaw the creation of man, the creation of the tzaddikim, the creation of people who would pray and give pleasure and joy to God. What more can you ask for from this life? Now he goes on, Yechadesh olamo b'asar mamarot. And then when you reach this level, you renew the world through the 10 statements of creation, which are really 10 programs. 10 software programs woven into creation, where God brought the world from nothing into something. And those 10 statements of creation begin in the Torah rendition in Hebrew, Vayi or, right? Vayi Geshem, Vayi Mavdil bein Mayim lamayim, Vayi Shtei Orot Gedolot b'Shamayim, the sun and the moon. All those Vayihis were statements of bringing ideas from God's blueprinted mind of creation into reality. Okay, now, Yechadesh olamo b'asar mamarot, those are renewed by us. In other words, we're the switch of creation. We're not spectators. Understand this over and over. When you do the right thing, you bring God into the world. And that's turning the switch on the light that we need to win this final battle. V'asara mamarot, these 10 statements are Hem Yud. And they are the idea of Yud. Yud is the gematria of 10, right? It's the 10th letter in the Aleph Bet. So each letter in the Aleph Bet has a numerical value. And we interchange the letter and its numerical value back and forth in all kinds of different ways, depending on what the discussion is. So here we have 10 statements of creation are corresponding to the idea of the Yud. And Yud is also a word, the name of that letter. And that word called Yud is Yud Vav Dav. And the gematria of Yud Vav Dav is 20. but the gematria of just Yud is 10. So listen how he does it. Yud, V'Dalid, Hanal, and this Yud and the Dalid that makes up the two letters in the word Yud, the two consonants, not I say hey, but when you put the Yud and the Dalid together, right, you have a Dalid and a Yud, right, over here, then you create the letter hey. And we said earlier, much earlier in the Torah, weeks ago, that this making the hey is bringing the divinity into the vessels. Because we see that Abraham and Sarah received a hey after Abraham did the circumcision, the Brit Milah. Then he was able to give birth to a son at the level of Yitzhak. So the hey, he was Avram, then he was Avraham. That hey was a transitional value, a letter that represented Avraham's spiritual transition. And so too every hey. We see Yehonatan, Yehoseph. They're all getting hays. Sarah, right? And so on. So we're creating that hay again by this proper prayer. We're bringing this Yud and this Dal together to recreate the structure of a name. Because remember, the name is the channel of the energy. Now he tells us another thing, that the idea of the 10 Commandments, God didn't give us the 10 Commandments to be tough, to be mean, to be strict. He gave us the 10 Commandments because it was a kindness. It was a kindness that he saw that was needed in creation. Shneimar Amarti. Why is that teaching us? Amarti. God said, I said. God is saying, I said. What's the deal? Ayinu Hamamarot. I already gave you the kindness of the 10 statements of creation. So understand that it's not a given that God would give. God gave from his kindness and his love and his mercy and his forethought to what he saw the human race would need. They need the 10 Commandments. The Jews and the non-Jews. Olam hesedi baneh, and that's a famous verse, that the world was created from kindness. It wasn't a necessary creation. It was God's kindness. V'chesed nekra el. And now Chesed is the power that's represented by the divine name Aleph Lamed El. Chesed El Kol Hayom is the verse he brings, right? That the kindness of God is coming out into all day long. You just have to look for it. That there's constantly Chesed being revealed, kindness being revealed in the world. Now, if we don't look for it, we won't see it. Now, Zeu Perush Pasuk, and this is Elohim al Damilach, and then we go back to the very first verse that the Rebbe brought. King David is praying and saying, God, don't be silent. Don't be mute. Kesha Adam ro'eh shemeshem Elohim na'aseh otiot el dami. When a person sees that the word Elohim, Aleph, Lamed, Heyud Mem, it's a name of God, that word is made of 5 letters. And think of the words as like notes in a musical phrase. Well, if you change one of the notes, you change the phrase. So here he's taking the letter Hey and it breaks into Dalet and Yud. And that's Al-Dami. So it goes from a name of God to God, don't be quiet. Don't be mute. So what's going on? We're changing concepts through the changing of the letters within the word. Just like Avraham was, I will create them. But before it wasn't I will create them, it was Avram. Right? The Hey came in and changed Avraham's name. It changed the content, not just the sound of the word. The content. See, so when you change a name, you're changing the content of the light. You're changing the manipulation of the infinite light into its vessels. Right? If you go under a waterfall and you take a cup, you get a cup of water. If you take a bucket, you get a bucket. And if you get the letters of God's name and you fill it with light, then you get something very special that lights your mind, it lights your brain, it lights your life. And it goes backward. If you turn the hay into the dalet, you're changing it to God. Be quiet. Don't be quiet. Amar lacha al techarash al tishkot. King David went on to say, don't be mute, don't be deaf, don't be silent. God, please arouse your own quality of kindness. See, this is the secret of one of the secrets of prayer. It's not that we're just praying to God for things. God, send mercy, send healing, send money, whatever you need. You're asking God, change your own state of mind, change your own position to us. God, don't hide your kindness. Don't be quiet. Don't be mute. Don't be deaf. Reveal your kindness. See, so, when you talk to your father and you ask him for a loan, what are you going to say? Oh, Dad, I need money. Okay, he understands that. But he said, Dad, please be kind. Reveal your kindness. That's what we're saying to him. Because Hashem has all the traits and all the qualities in infinite levels. And by this type of prayer, this prayer that we're talking about here that gives God pleasure, we turn the dal back into the hey. We take the name, the word, the phrase, don't be quiet, we put it back into God, you are the judge, you're the king, you're the master. And the name Elohim is God as judge. And then we take the word El, this Aleph Lamed, which is the name of God as the Almighty, and we turn it into Dalet Dalet, which is the word Dad, which means breast, which means source of nourishment. So we're trying to shape the light into a source of nourishment. Umi, and the word me, mem yud, me, which means who, but it's also the last two letters of the divine name Elohim, bechinat dad, and that word me also gets turned into the word dad. So these two ideas of dad, these are two breasts that we anthropomorphize. I don't even know how many syllables that is, right? That we turn the godly into a human-esque figure that we can grasp and understand. And we turn God into the nurturer, into the giver of life force. Ve'hehi ashefa, and the light itself is called the hay. So you need the light and you need the vessel for the light. You can't have just one. Ki hey b'shlosha tziorim shela b'gematria halev. Halav, and the word halav, which is milk, what we're trying to get is the milk of life, to give life force, to give healing, to give power to everything. That word halav, chet lamed bet, is the same gematria as the three different ways you can spell hay according to the Kabbalah, the beta klalut, and the two all-inclusive concepts that are attached to each name, to those who know the Kabbalah. And the Rebbe stops the Torah right there. So it sounds like he's just stopping right there, giving us all that Kabbalah, and now what are we going to do with it? No, we have to review it. We have to understand it. That letters are channels of vibrational power, frequencies of the infinite into the finite realm, in order that something that cannot be bound, the infinite light, can be bound through just sound. And so you see, that's a secret why we call God Hashem, the name. He is the name. He is a contraction of himself in his name. So you are a contraction of your name. And your name is a vessel holding the light of your soul. And when you know that and you live that and you experience that, you're going to know why we say God is one every day, all day long. God bless you all. We're going to begin a new series. We're going to continue the series on scapegoat, the idea of why do the world hate us? They don't hate us. They don't even know who we are. We'll talk more about that later. God bless you. Have a great week.